phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
Many college football players have dreams and aspirations to continue their game to the pro level and play in the National Football League. Not everyone will get this privilege or this opportunity. Some, it may come quicker than others. You'll have some college players go pro after 3 years and 4 years. And in some cases, you'll have 5 years, and even people who have played college football for a total of 6 years go pro to the NFL. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some college football athletes, current ones at that are going to have their last chance to really impress people, or be approaching on their last chance to impress people, to show them what they're all about before they ultimately attempt to go pro. All the players in today's video have pro prospects, and they're going to try to increase their draft stock in whatever draft they plan on going into, and ultimately prove people nationwide why they need to be considered more seriously as a top-level elite talent going into whatever NFL draft they're going into. However, they all have something similar, all being former highly regarded recruits that have impressed at some points in their career but ultimately may have lacked the consistency or playing time to really show themselves as elite prospects, and all are at the later part of their collegiate careers now, and that window of opportunity to really impress people and leave a mark is coming to a close. Before I move on, remember to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into it. The first player that I'm going to be talking about in today's video is South Carolina quarterback Spencer Rattler. Rattler was a 5-star and the #1 quarterback from the 2019 recruiting class. And he's had moments in his college football career where he's been very impressive. His first year at Oklahoma as a starting quarterback in 2020, he threw for over 3,000 yards, completing 67% of his passes, with 28 touchdowns to the air compared to 7 interceptions and 6 touchdowns on the ground. But since that moment, it seems like Rattler's consistency has kind of faltered time to time, as he's had some very big games from 21 to 2022, but ultimately he has been a quarterback that has struggled with consistency from time to time, especially with protecting the ball and turnovers. At Oklahoma, his last year there, he got replaced by Caleb Williams mid-season, and this past season at South Carolina in 13 games played, he started off a little rough, but he did finish strong. He completed 66% of his passes, threw for 3,026 yards, 18 touchdowns to the air compared to 12 interceptions. Rattler has a lot of intangibles that people would love to have in a quarterback. He has a pretty good pocket presence, he has good mechanics, he's accurate, has good arm talent, and ultimately seems to have a very good football knowledge. However, this year is going to be very important in the transition of Spencer Rattler's football career and potential pro prospects. He's going into his 5th year, and he has to have his best season. He has to be a more consistent quarterback in 2023 than he was in 2022. There are still NFL scouts and people who cover the NFL that are very high on Spencer Rattler. But the case is, he has to have a good season in 2023. He started off rough in 2022, and 2021, he was kind of inconsistent and eventually got benched. We need to see the 2020 Spencer Rattler, or even an improved version from that 2020 Spencer Rattler, to really see him increase his draft stock seriously. This is really going to be his last year to really pick up his stock and to thrive and try to get the best draft position that he can really get. Because if he has to take a 6th year of college football, I don't know if that's going to help him more than it would being a 5th year declaree who had a mediocre year at best. Staying in the SEC for this next player, I'm going to be talking about Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton. Milton is a former 4-star recruit from the 2018 class, and he's going into his final year of college eligibility for this 2023 college football season. Up to this point, Joe Milton has primarily been a backup his entire career. He did have a short stint as a starting quarterback for Michigan in 2020, as he started in 5 of the 6 games he played in, and ultimately had a lot of ups and downs, completing 56% of his passes, throwing for 1,077 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. And 2023 is going to be the first season we've seen Joe Milton as a projected full-time starter in quite some time. In 2022, he was really impressive as a backup quarterback to Hendon Hooker, as he had 10 touchdowns compared to 0 interceptions, while throwing for 971 yards, while completing roughly 65% of his passes, and in the games that he started in and played some real playing time in, he was very impressive. Milton is a quarterback that many people are raving about going into 2023, and even some people potentially projecting him as a Heisman finalist and a potential first-round pick. He has the size, and he has arguably the strongest arm in college football right now. But this 23 season, it's his last hurrah. It's his last time to really impress people and show people what they may be expecting. The last time he was a full-time starting quarterback, he had a lot of ups and downs. It was his first year as a starter, and it was back in 2020. Now going into 2023, everyone's expecting him to be a top 10 quarterback. Someone that can be top 5 and a potential first-round pick. He has the size, he has the arm strength, he has the great offensive players around him, and that great offense that Josh Heupel has at Tennessee to succeed. But ultimately, it's going to be up to his play and what he's going to put on in the field and really impress people. He has to get the accuracy down. He was very accurate versus Clemson in the bowl game, but even before that, he had some games against some, I would say, lower quality opponents where he didn't throw the ball that much but completed all of his passes, but also had his game versus Tennessee where he wasn't the most accurate passer. I think it's going to be very interesting to keep up with Joe Milton going into 2023, as I believe he has a lot of potential, and I think he's going to have a very good season, but it's going to be interesting to see how he turns out and see how much he's going to be really improving as a full-time starter from his time in 2020 at Michigan to today, 2023, his last year of college football at Tennessee. Moving on to the next player, I'm going to be talking about Florida Gator quarterback Graham Mertz. Mertz was a top 10 quarterback in the class of 2019 and a very highly coveted 4-star recruit, and also probably one of the best high school players to ever come out of the state of Kansas. Mertz, up to this point in his career, has spent all of it at Wisconsin. In those 4 years at Wisconsin, he was a starter in 3 from 2020 to 2022, in which he completed 59% of his passes, throwing for 5,405 yards, 38 touchdowns compared to 26 interceptions. He bursted out onto the scene in 2020, where he impressed many and had a pretty good campaign, and people thought he would be the next great quarterback to lead their team down the line. However, that really just hasn't been the case for Wisconsin. 2021, he had a very down year. He threw more interceptions than he did touchdown passes. 2022, Wisconsin, they went 6-6. And outside the non-conference play and the very big game that he had against Northwestern, who was the worst Big Ten team in 2022, Mertz was very inconsistent and often struggled mightily in Big Ten play. In 2022, he threw for just over 2,000 yards, completing 57% of his passes, 19 touchdowns compared to 10 interceptions. In my opinion, this is a very important year for Graham Mertz, as Mertz, in my opinion, is more than likely a guy that will have to take his last year of college football eligibility, that big 6th year for the 2024 college football season. And of course, he's going to be playing against SEC teams, and he's going to have to win that job first for the Florida Gators, that starting QB1 spot for 2023. And yes, up to this point, he has not been the most consistent or best quarterback out there, especially when you're talking about nationally. And I see this being potentially his real last shot to really improve his draft stock and show people what he's all about and to try to salvage what he's had in his college football career. Of course, he has to win the job, but it's very important to have a good season. If he doesn't have a good year, of course he's going to take that last year of college football eligibility, but he may have to transfer schools yet again. As Florida, going into 2024, they're bringing in one of the best quarterbacks in that 24 class, DJ Lagway, a 5-star. And that might just be who Billy Napier wants to roll with and try to save Florida football and rebuild that program back to what it was. The final player that I'm going to be talking about in today's video, from the class of 2020, a top 5 player and the number 1 tight end in that class, Nebraska tight end Gilbert. As a true freshman for LSU in 2020, he really hit the scene and showed people what he could potentially be down the line, as he had great games and ultimately had a great season that was shortened. 35 receptions, 368 yards, averaging over 10 yards a reception and 2 touchdowns through the air. He really was projecting to be the next great college football tight end, and if you would have asked many people at that time, if you would have asked him where would he be by the end of the 2022 season where he would be draft eligible. Some would say he would be in the NFL by that point because he would have been drafted in the 2023 NFL Draft. But fast forward to today, he is on his third team, and he's barely played in any college football since that 2020 campaign. He transferred to Georgia for 2021. He did not appear in any games with the team and wasn't really with the team at all during 2021 because of some personal issues that were going on outside of football. So he redshirted. He came back in 2022. Problem was Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers. Two guys that really ran that tight end position, and even though Gilbert was running in at wide receiver as well, those are two very important pieces of that offense that started to take over during that 2021 campaign, and they came back, and Gilbert ultimately didn't get a lot of time. That 2022 season, 2 receptions, 16 yards, 1 touchdown. And after that 2022 season, he entered the portal for a second time and is now at Nebraska. And he's not even guaranteed to play in the 2023 season for the Cornhuskers, as he's already used up one of his free transfers and is currently trying to get a waiver to play immediately in 2023. I'm someone who is a very big fan of Gilbert ever since he was coming out of high school, as he's a tight end that is a once-in-a-generation talent, has insane and elite size at that position, insane athleticism, and is a player that has a very high upside. But if he's not going to be able to play in the 2023 season, he's going to have a guaranteed 1 year left for his college football career, and potentially 2, if he does in fact take that last year because he played in 2020, and if it's actually given to him. In some cases, not every player that played in 2020 gets that extra year of eligibility sometimes, but in this case, he probably would. Everyone knows in his potential and the size that he has at that tight end position. Everyone knows the hype coming out of high school and the hype that he had after his true freshman campaign at LSU in 2020. But if you're looking at Gilbert today, there's always top tight ends going to the draft every year and top tight ends emerging in college football out of nowhere. And he could potentially be one of those guys. But the truth to be told, we have not seen enough of Gilbert. He had that great freshman campaign, but ever since, he's barely played in any games and we've barely got any production. I still think he has some time left in his career, and he has a bigger window than the other players I've talked about, but he's going to have to impress. It's been a while since we've seen him seriously play real meaningful snaps, and we'll potentially see it in 2023, but we'll definitely see it in 2024. Well guys, if you made it this far in today's video, drop something down in the comments section below what videos you want to see me make in the future. And before you head out, remember to smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, and subscribe if you haven't already. B. Kelly out.